Welcome. I'm Carrie Gilbert, aka CyberCarrie, and today I'm excited to share the first of many installments of my podcast series highlighting innovative technology solutions. Here with me are the guys from Data Secured 360, which I think is going to be an absolute game changer when it comes to data protection. Let's kick it off with my good friend and CEO of Data Secured 360, Tom Ketner.
Yeah, I actually talked to them before this, about it because some of it's proprietary. And so I said, let me talk about the technology. And if I mess up and say something that shouldn't be shared, at least it's me. But it's cool that if we can knock that stuff out, I think we'd be okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think we'll be fine.
Okay. So I think to get started, we should do introductions. I will start. I'm Carrie Gilbert. I am the Chief Revenue Officer for Honest Technologies, a technology integrator / VAR, and I have a background in cybersecurity.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I am Jeff Sajjad. I am the CTIO for Data Secure 360. My background is strategizing security for Fortune 10 startups, talking about AI governance. I have kind of like my own AI governance framework, so I'm very excited to see what we can do with Data Secure 360 and map those frameworks together.
I'm Artem Vasilyev. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Data Secure 360, which basically kind of puts me in charge of most of the operating things behind this company that we have been putting a lot together so far. So I'm really excited for us to share kind of the technology here. And I bring to this role a lot of my finance and data analytics background.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm Tom Ketner. I'm sort of the brain child of this. My background started in directory services and then kind of moved to the migration portion of it. I have up to, like Jeff, Fortune 10 work, a lot of cybersecurity, PKI background. And, the Active Directory or the Microsoft Directory Services really is the foundation for a lot of things that led into really getting to know this technology and space. So that is my background.
Wonderful. All right. Well, on that note, let's just jump right into it. So Before we get into the how, I wanted to start with the story. The entire company, the whole architecture started with a single scene in a movie where a man is dying and his last request to his friend is wipe my hard drive.
Yeah.
So why did that hit you so hard, and how did that turn from a funny line into a serious business?
That scene happened a good year and a half, 2 years ago before I even kind of thought up this. And then so, around December of last year, I was a little frustrated with the industry at that time, and I decided to put some stuff on paper. And, thinking about this specifically, I was like, well, what's it going to hurt? Let's put it down and see how it plays out. And once I figured out a couple pieces to it, it really blossomed. But that's kind of how it happened. I put it down on paper, and I knew right away that this was something big. And you and I were talking a lot at the time, and that's when I called you up. I said, hey, Jerry, I figured this thing out. And, I'm sure at the time you were saying to everybody else, but then you told me the story about data. And that just cemented that this was right out of the box. It was something special. I knew it was something special.
Right. And okay, so when you first brought this idea to your inner circle outside of me, thinking of the Dan story, what was the general reaction from people? And was there a moment when you realized you were making a big financial and time and emotional investment on something that a lot of people might have thought was impossible?
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because we've started talking to people outside of our inner circle, and the same thing happens every time. We show because everybody in our industry understands what it means to deal with a breach, whether it's a breach or having your credentials stolen or anything in that, getting those letters in the mail that business that you have worked with has been breached and your credentials are out there. We've all kind of dealt with that. And so we have 100% response, same response. In fact, Jeff was a guy that we brought in fairly early, and he was close to the camera. When we explained what this was, his eyes opened as soon as he realized what it was. And we get that every single time with my colleagues because they come into it as I've been doing this for a while. I know a lot of people, and I've shown this to people, and every time, as soon as it hits what this is, their eyes open. Their eyes open because it does change the way these technologies work together. And once you kind of see how that has changed, it becomes an eye opener. It really does. I mean, and we've gotten that from every single person. It's funny.
Fantastic. And being in this industry, I mean, anytime I see a new technology, I'm a total skeptic until they lay it out, and then I'm like, okay, that tracks. I like that.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about the who. We just referred to your team as the unicorns. So tell us a little bit more about the team building it, and what kind of background did it take to focus on something that's this complex?
I absolutely am aware of the things that I'm good at and the things that I'm not good at. And, Artem, fairly early in our relationship, after he saw what this did, and he was like, you stay behind the computer and then I will deal with the finance portion of it. Artem really has helped find the way to get this out there. He's kind of prepared the marketing. He's prepared the budget. We know exactly what this is going to cost. And Artem, he's, very close to me and has a very extensive background in finance. And bringing that to the table was really, like I said, early piece to figure out what this was going to take financially, at least on the front end. The back end is done. And then once we had the back end architecture, that's when I called Jeff. Jeff was actually the first colleague that because I had worked with Jeff on a previous project. He was the first guy that I spoke to about this, and it kind of explained the architecture and what it does. And I'm not kidding you. Artem was sitting behind me when I was talking to Jeff about it, and we still joke. His eyes went from a dial 1 to a dial 10 when he saw it. And so I love Jeff. I love working with guys that are hungry. In this business, if you're not learning, you're dying. And so, but Jeff is hungry. He wants it all, and I know that I can send him on a mission, and it's going to get done. It's just one of those things. So,
which is a necessary quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So you have a phrase that's repeated often: copying data does not copy authority. In plain English, tell it to me like you're writing it in crayon. What does that mean for someone's privacy?
Oh, I got a story that we use. So recently, Carnival Cruise released like 800,000 customer files, or customer data into Texas. And so the system that we've created would basically, if your device or app is not registered with our infrastructure, then somebody comes in and social engineers customer data, like what happened in Carnival Cruises, or one of your employees sends customer data to somebody. That person would not be able to read the data. It would look like ciphertext. So the only way you can read your data is if you're on a registered device and have an app. So what that means is if Carnival Cruise was a customer of ours, then and a bad actor got the customer data, they wouldn't be able to read it.
I personally love that as, someone with a cybersecurity heart and understanding the social engineering and that most breaches happen from human error. I can relate.
Right.
Okay. So now for the listeners, what exactly is Data Secured 360? Give me a non-technical overview, because to a lot of people, first glance, you're like, oh, it's a password vault. We've got X, Y, and Z that already cover that. So let's dive into how it's different.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go back to the story a little bit about if something happens to me, wipe my hard drive. I didn't want to be subpoenaed or have any way possible for me to access users' data or provide access to users' data ever. In no way whatsoever. And once I figured that out, and once I put some things together with it, it opens so many doors. Because on the personal side, even I've got vacation photos and things like that. It's nothing bad, but those are mine. You know what I mean? And I don't want anybody else to get those. And so the name of this company started as Project Legacy before we had Data Secure 360, and it was to protect people's legacy. And financial documents or anything that you've got, that's our true white portion of it. Another portion of it is the family side. So one of the things that has happened between my dad and I as the baby boomers grow up, our lives become data at this point, and it changes all the time. Our passwords change all the time, and it will give you an opportunity to set up a simple email. So anything that you want to go to this person over an email, it's dropped to your data drop. The timer that we decided to do to determine when people were using the application was the plan is to give away a better than pay password app for free. We're about data automation. We're not about passwords. And we've been looking at all the different password apps, and the best thing about them is to give that away, to give away something that people are already using. That's, I don't know if you use a free version or whatever, but Google Password Manager is the most insecure thing that you could ever have. Absolutely. You can say, look, if I don't use my password app in a month, well, there's a problem, right? And that's after setting up alerts and everything else. But you can say, if I don't use my password app and my alerts are ignored for a month, then you are going to shoot an email to my recipient, whoever that you trust. It'll have instructions. You'll install the app. They'll install the app if they're not already an app user. Be able to click a link, and they will then be able to register their device. You don't have to worry about trying to get your dad's stuff or your mom's stuff. Those are basically our two personal use cases. So we've got File Act, Auto Act, and TrueWipe. Auto Act is like, I forget my wife's I forget her anniversary every year. You can
better not.
Yeah, I know. So when or Secretary Day, or whatever, or whatever day you want, you can set an automatic gift or something like that will get sent, or reminders. It automates pretty much anything you want, and you can set that up as part of our offering as well. Yeah.
So I know that a lot of this is proprietary, and we won't get too granular, but I wanted to talk about the three-plane architecture. Most systems fail because an administrator with God rights can see everything. So you've split it into three distinct layers without giving away your secret sauce. Can you tell me more?
Yeah. So when I was developing the non-compellability on the back end and not being able to view or give up somebody's data, I had come up with this three-plane architecture. And what this means is, in plane one is where our customer data will live. It will be where your device registration lives. And so outside of that, anything that's actually a encryption event or protection event happens in plane 2 and plane 3. So plane 2, what this is, it's an entitlement gating, meaning you have to, so let me try and think of how I can explain this. So whenever you register your subscription, let's use that. So you sign up for a subscription and you say, I want to be part of Auto Act or Final Act or something like that. Then what that means is you will one time make a registration on a subscription. Your device will be registered, your app will be registered, and from then on, everything will happen with opaque identifiers, meaning there'll be a folder ID or there'll be a user object ID. That's non-readable. Nobody can tell what it is. It's basically a handshake between our infrastructure and your infrastructure. From there, it will then kind of traverse as a packet up the line. No administrative access can do anything above plane 1. Meaning if we have somebody with God rights, they cannot interact with anything within plane 2. They cannot interact with anything in plane 3. Plane 3 can only talk to plane 2. Plane 2 can only talk to plane 1 and plane 3. There's no external access for anyone. Even if somebody got God rights, they would not be able to interfere with your data. If something happened so we never say nothing can happen. But what we do say is we have taken administration out of this piece. So if anything happens or anything is changed, a script is changed, or somebody deletes something, we have what's called a fail close. Nothing will continue. There's no administrative rights to that. So, and that's where this three-plane infrastructure is different. So in a normal business, once they get your administration, they pretty much have you. They can get to your service accounts, they can get to your directories, they can get to your backup, they can get to your data. And really, that's where Jeff's eyes popped open. Because once he realized the difference, because we've all seen it. I've spent 5 days under a desk not leaving the office because we had to change the passwords because of a breach. That happens because once they get you administratively, they've got your entire infrastructure. And that's where we're different. If somehow they were to get our administrative stack, they wouldn't be able to do anything with it. We use our same technology. If they got your data, they would only be able to see ciphertext, and they wouldn't be able to do anything in plane 2 and plane 3 to be able to affect your data. So it's all, and I'm trying to do this without getting too proprietary, but and that's where the system is unique. It keeps administrative access out of plane 2 and plane 3, and that's what's unique about it.
Okay. I like that. Okay, let's talk about the where. So where the data lives. You talk about bring your own storage. Why let users keep their data on their own, OneDrive or Google instead of hosting it? You mentioned storage before. Can you expand on that a little bit?
So part of it was cost. Storage is expensive, and so and we can do a storage. Actually, one of the commercial offerings that we're looking at, we would host what's called warm storage or immutable storage. But with you, I wanted people to keep their own storage. I did not want, because then we're become responsible for the data as well. So by keeping your own storage, we call it BYOS, bring your own storage. It has no bearing whatsoever on this. I mean, you can put a hook or API call or whatever. It just, it depends on what method each storage company uses. But it's your device. It's your application that is really important, along with our back end. And there's some hardware pieces that are involved with it, but you keep your own storage. It doesn't change any of that. It will use an app consent as you go into the app, but even if you try to access your storage outside of our app after this, you would be considered an attack because you are trying to access your own storage outside of the app. Once you have the app and once you have the subscription, it would create a folder within your own infrastructure, wherever you want, whether it's Google or OneDrive or whatever. And from there, that portion is hidden and it's protected by our app. But once you have the app, I mean, it's readable, it's everything else like that on your own system. So, and that's kind of where it was unique because again, it increased our cost, it increased our ownership of your data. And that's the one thing we didn't want. We wanted to be able to protect your data. We wanted to be able to automate your data. We didn't want to be responsible for your data.
That's fair.
If that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
From the EMMC perspective, right? Especially working, with healthcare data. In the last year, I onboarded a lot of vendors to Fortune 10 organizations. And one of our biggest concern was that where does the data live? And in cases there are tools that I don't want to name tools, but we actually had to ask the tools to go back and create an outpost for us. So our data doesn't leave our organization goes into your data center. Because if that happens, or especially if we're dealing with any sort of DoD data, healthcare data, right, then we're violating, for example, if I'm a healthcare organization and I have a vendor that is processing my data from a CSPM, DSPM perspective, then I'm violating my contracts with my patients. So that also kind of opens us up to enterprises like healthcare and all of those good organizations for us. So that's why BYO is really, really great.
Okay. No, I like that. It keeps everyone can protect their own compliance when they store their data and this have an added layer of protection.
Right, exactly.
Okay. So how do you keep the keys to the kingdom safe? Why should an investor or a user believe that even you can't see their data? Can you give me that answer without giving your proprietary secrets?
Right. No. So I think I can. I mean, like I said, we didn't invent any of this technology. And so one of the things that exists on our plane 3, and I'm going to have to nerd out here for a second, is it's called a MHSM or Managed Hardware Security Module. And on everybody's iPhone, everybody's computer, there's a hardware chip. So initially when I had done this, I had thought about using OS secured storage. And it's a symbiotic relationship with it. So your device is what creates encryption. So what we're going to do is we would register your app and your device, which is normal, but we would also use our backend security module. And this hardware doesn't have exportable keys. So whenever you encrypt something, it uses what's called an encryption key. And it's a certain amount of size, depending on your encryption, that you use And so together with these hardware modules that they've got, and I'll use Windows because I'm basically a Windows guy, it has what's called a TPM chip on your device. This is the non-exportable key storage location. And we have basically the same thing on our side. It's called a two-party wrap, unwrap. And so your device still handles the encryption. What ours does is it puts an extra encrypted envelope on top of that, protects that. And it's non-exportable. I mean, this is something that cannot be exported. There's no way to view keys. And that's why I said there's nothing for an attacker to get. We can't even get to the protected keys. And that's really what protects your data. It protects the encryption keys. And and that's where the two-party wrap comes in. We protect that even more with our infrastructure, but we didn't invent a hardware security module. That's just something we use because you can't export the keys. This is where our non-fallibility and no subpoena and there's no way for an attacker to get the keys because you can't export the keys. Not even we could with God rights.
Okay. So I'm going to be a little bit of a skeptic. So
absolutely, bring it.
An IT professional, your favorite Azure admin. Maybe it's Dan. I don't know.
He is my favorite Azure admin.
He's mine too. So they come to you and say, this isn't possible. I'm an admin. I own the box. I can eventually get the data. So how can you explain to them what specific part of your architecture makes that go wrong?
Right. And I think this is where the eye-opening thing comes in. So, once you understand how the three-plane architecture works and then and I'll get back to the hardware security modules. And once you understand how those work, it's really kind of and I don't want to say a no-brainer, but it's really the eye-opener when you see how this works. Anybody can go online right now and Google two-party wrap, two-party unwrap on a hardware security module and TPM chip, and they'll get a basic understanding on how the keys get protected and are not exportable. Somebody steals your laptop. Now, there's another way to do it, and this is something that in the beginning we made a clear decision. We always talk about there are no shortcuts on security with us. I mean, we take the most secure. Now, there's something called an OS secure storage on everybody's Android or computer or whatever. But Entity actually has a longer key length that you can put in that. Each one has something different. But if, there's some concerns if somebody steals your laptop because it is in secure storage instead of hardware secure storage, there could be a way that somebody could get the keys. So we nixed that right away and decided to go completely hardware. And what that means is on both sides, it's stored in hardware. It's just non-exportable. There's no way for anyone. You can't get the keys. Nobody can get the keys if you're storing this in hardware. And by registering the device and the app together, there's no way. I mean, it cannot be done. That's the question I always ask myself. Is it technically possible? And if the answer is no, then that's the win.
Okay, so let's talk about Final Act and True Wipe. True Wipe sounds intense. And so tell me that this is not just a fancy way of saying delete. How can you actually make the decryption structurally unavailable?
So, and what we use is this is where our architecture comes in, and True Wipe, like I said, is the first thing that I had come up with initially. So when you're dealing with, and my background is mostly Azure, it's there, once you get into AWS, it's called something slightly different, but the Microsoft Managed Hardware Security Module. What our architecture does is it makes the key unaccessible, meaning it's a complete fail close. It destroys the accessibility of the key even to itself. Not only is it no longer exportable, but it becomes a and there's a technical term for it, and I'm having an old man moment right now, but it becomes structurally impossible for decryption. It's a permanent fail close, meaning even on the user's device, there's just the unwrap on our side cannot happen. It takes that key, and once it gets the notification that True Wipe has happened, because that's what kind of plane 2 does. That's the entitlement gating plane 2. And there's a lot of checks that have to go through before True Wipe. Have all alerts happen. We have this thing called kill switch on there. Like if something happens somehow and you've set a 1 month timer and you've been in Europe on a beach somewhere for a month, you can hit kill switch on your phone as long as the app's on your phone, and it will stop True White from happening. Because True White is True White. We put as many things in place to help you. Now, one of the things that we've got is a concierge AI. It has zero access to your data, but it's got videos and it's got a very helpful walkthrough on how to set this up, as well as, hey, if people are setting their data to be absolutely destroyed and non-accessible, I think there's a reason for that, meaning that's probably on their mind. But we also can't protect people from themselves either, meaning we're going to put every safeguard in place. We're going to send alerts to your text. We're going to send alerts to your email, or we're going to ask you to send alerts to your. If you override those alerts, then there will be a lot of pop-ups saying, in fact, we even talked about this. There will be 2 pop-ups. They say, are you sure you don't want any alerts before your data is structurally destroyed? You know what I mean? But, like I said, there's a lot. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people I've said this to that have said, I'm your customer whenever you figure this out, because whether it's legal documents or stuff that they've got on their laptop, they don't want anybody else to see. And we take a lot of other safeguards along with it, because it structurally destroys the key. And there is no coming back from that. And unless you have a copy somewhere, so we tell people, don't take this lightly. And we will also, like I said, put a lot of safeguards in place. That's the True White portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Final act. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, guys.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So this actually becomes a huge use case for the government as well, like the True White, especially if you want to go ahead and do data destructions and things like that and not being able to recover it. We were talking to an ex-Marine yesterday, and he's like, this is something that we can definitely use.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why True Wipe is, we want to call it's not just file deletion, right? It's total destruction. So we want to make sure we put in total, safeguards there and train people, right? Because people are the one that can create their own problems.
Yes, always.
Concierge AI is really going to help them set this up properly. So
Right.
This is where it kind of opens up new use cases for government as well.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. I've literally been having a conversation with a state government, and they keep, I think, 3 days worth of data to protect everyone in the legislature. But yes, I can see the use case for government.
Right. Yeah. And the military guy that we talked to, those questions actually came from him that I sent you yesterday or a couple of days ago. Those are his questions, and they were spot on. And because we've even had that with administrators before they knew this, they're like, that's not possible to do what we're doing until they get on with us. Because, I mean, I'm not going to send out everything about our proprietary back end, but I will get on a call with them after they sign an NDA and show it to them. And every single one of them, like I said, the eyes pop once they see it. And I'm not kidding you, 100% of the people we've shown it to has told us another use case. It's like Jeff just said, I hadn't even thought of the military use cases that he had talked to us about yesterday. I was like, oh my gosh, that will totally work. But it really is. The back end architecture is so versatile, and it is so protective of people's data that it's an eye pop. I mean, literally for everybody. And it affects everybody in the world. I mean, we all have had data stolen. We've all have gotten that letter in the mail saying our credentials have been released to somebody. I mean, and if we can prevent that, I mean, the gap and use case for this it's amazing.
Right. And what comes to mind for me is when I was staying at Aria in Las Vegas right after the big MGM breach.
Oh, yeah.
It was, everybody was running around hair on fire trying to be like, it's cool. And it was not cool at all. So I think about that and all of the financial data that's, tied into casinos and the hospitality industry. So.
Yeah, I was called in as part of the post breach for, I don't want to. And the reason I'm kind of on the down low of this is because we could not even say breach while we were there, and they held on, and hopefully they're not going to get upset with me. They did not announce until a bigger company was breached. If you look up, they announced on the same. Wow. They were aware a while before they announced. they waited for a bigger company to announce. And so that's why the announcement for the same day.
Okay, so talking about data and circling back to the government. So let's say the government comes to you and you're subpoenaed and they've got to have X, Y, and Z users' data. What do you tell them?
So, and that probably will happen. Like I said, it's not technically possible. And that was the number one requirement that really, to be honest, that ballooned up the entire infrastructure, is because it's called non-compellability. And this is something that throughout was the fact that we could not be compelled to give up the keys to user data because it cannot be exported. It's built into the technology itself that I'm sorry, government. There's nothing we can do. You have to go straight to the source on that.
Okay, I like that. Okay, so talking about users and market rollout, who is the target user today? You've got a personal family path and a professional path. So why start with these groups rather than jumping straight into big money enterprise?
So there's a couple reasons for it. It depends on which unicorn you ask. And the reason for that is because I think I personally created this as an app. I hadn't even thought, like I said, the professional was Artem's, and I was sitting down one day on the commercial side trying to think of a commercial application for this. And I was like, oh my gosh, we already have it because of the back end. So anything that we do different, whether it's the personal family, the professional, or the commercial, will be a different UI. It'll be but it all sit on the same back end. The back end architecture is what is the protection of everybody's data. So I think with 94 million current password users and giving away the Better Than Tay, a password app, that is our inroad into the personal. Because we're going to give some data services away. I don't know how much yet, but we will give probably AutoAct. We might allow you to send your spouse a gift every year. I don't know. We haven't worked out that portion of it yet, but Final Act and TrueWipe will be definitely a paid tier. But I think giving that away will give us an inroad into a lot of different users that currently use a password app, whether they use a free version. And none of the free versions are great. It doesn't, I've had so many issues with and Google, like I said, is the most insecure thing ever. So we think by giving that away, that will give us at least a baseline in that. So I think the personal one, you talk to Artem, the professional is his baby all day. He had come up with it. And it was, right before the Carnival Cruise breach. And as soon as that hit, like I said, there's always another use case. And once Carnival Cruise hit, I was like, we can prevent that. And it was like one of those things that, because we can only authorize certain devices and users and apps. And if the data is anywhere else, then it's ciphertext, which is basically non-readable. And so there's that. And then the commercial side, we need storage. And I have not re-architected commercial since normally the beginning. So right now it's a phase 2 portion because it is immutable storage. And like I said, whenever you get into storage, you're talking about a much larger cost. The commercial side of it, it's a much different thing. Because one of the things, like I said, I've got a lot of breach experience, a lot of architecture experience. And the one thing we have to be certain that the data that we're protecting is secure. Or immutable is what this is. So we have a staging portion before it can become immutable storage. What we do is we read the header. That way, if somebody does come in for ransomware, and on the commercial side, we're not a backup and restore company. What we are is we are a disaster recovery company. If you are hit with ransomware, then you can recover from it very quickly.
To add something real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Arsen.
I wanted to add something real quick regarding the professional and personal versions as well. First thing being why the professional really came to me as one of the main markets that we need to target first is because it's the most vulnerable at this time.
Yeah.
So according to all the cybersecurity polls, lawyer polls, whatever, anyone you take in that niche, anyone who could be protecting them, referring to cybersecurity professionals, they all have a consensus that these people cannot afford enterprise level security, but they need it.
Right.
And nobody has a solution for that as of now, as far as we are aware. And that kind of closes the gap, and it's a much faster sell, and it will give us proof of concept because you're able to go much easier in with a smaller business and implement something like this with them versus going, commercial where there's going to be like 100 skeptics in every single room you're going to try to sell. And
Right.
without a viable proof of concept, which the personal and the professional brings, we don't have that yet. So that's why that was kind of, well, the cost, as Tom said, it's always on everyone's mind as the number one thing. But the number two thing is having a viable proof of concept so that when we do go into that market, we're able to have a stronger footing, where, okay, out of those 100 skeptics, we can at least convince like 90% of them with, okay, we've done this on a smaller scale and we do have, what it takes to build. And that's kind of our goal right now. So going into professional and personal in the beginning is a much better in, and it's, in my opinion, it's an easier sell because
Right.
those professionals are the most vulnerable and they have no one there to protect them. No one
Right.
offers this type of service. So it's going to be, the conversation will be very straightforward, and there will be much less skeptics when trying to sell a product like this.
Right.
I agree. As someone who really loves the SMB market, because those small to medium businesses are used to being treated like an afterthought from a lot
Right.
of technology vendors. Because, if you don't have 5,000 users and they're not going to make $2 million, then, do they really want to spend time with you? So
Right.
that is
Right.
definitely a sweet spot in the overall market.
Right. Hold on real quick, because there's a couple different pieces with that as well. And so Artem makes a valid point. 88% of SMBs have had some kind of either a ransomware attempt or some kind of breach attempt or data has been stolen. And so that's a huge niche market as well, considering there's nobody able to do what we do currently that we are aware of at the price point that we can do it. And so there's that piece of it. On the second side of that is, if you accept customer data, you are responsible for that data. I'm sorry, but you are. You have to be able to take responsibility for protecting your users' data. And right now, the only solution is enterprise level solutions. And really, even those don't do what we do, because there's pieces that do some of it. Endpoint protection and, MFA, and, you put all those pieces together and you might have something, but then you're under the multi-million-dollar implementations, and these SMBs, they can't afford things like that. And so it becomes a responsibility, but then are you even able to be in business if you try to implement something like this? So we feel, and that's why I said Artem and I, because personal for me was the starting point of this, and the 94 million possible target users of your system. Even if we get 1% of that, that's a huge deal. But he's right. He's absolutely right. But for me, it's a different UI. So because the back end is done. We built the back end. We proved out the back end. But we have to make this appeal to individuals. Individuals. One of the things that we've talked about is a customizable UI, which means that even, and I say this with all due respect, because my grandmother was a saint, but trying to get her back in the day, trying to get her to email me a file, it was so rough. And so I want to build something that is easy for my grandma, if she was around, to be able to use today. And so, which means it's got to appeal to all aspects. It's got to appeal, and Jeff will whip out his version of the UI, which has so many different technical pieces. You check all of your different, dark web and this and that, but it has to appeal to a market. And so that and the professional version is completely different. So, how we build the UI is going to be important on that market. But Artem's absolutely right. But for me, it may be something that we work on at the same time, because it's such a huge gap, and everybody is being affected by it right now. You can't not listen to the news and hear about another breach, whether and Carnival Cruises it depends on how their storage is, whether they're an enterprise customer or a professional customer, but it is still somebody that we could have protected against this. And so the first one out is the one that's going to win, and the one that's got the best and really the front facing and what people see. I say this, it's got to be appealable. It's, people have to love it, and they have to make it. It's got to be easy to use, and it's got to be friendly, but it's got to be secure, and it's got to be able to do all those portions. So I'm great at the back end stuff, architecture, because that's my bread and butter. But the UI is stuff that we have to work.
And that's fair. I thought about that just when I was rolling out CrowdStrike to customers last year. So the difference between the UI for Falcon and CrowdStrike Go, Falcon, people that are not tech savvy look at it and they're like,
Right.
Absolutely not. I don't know what that is. But then you look at Go and it's cute and it can
Right,
work on the phone and there's like 4 buttons. So this is just a little confirmation that you're on the right path with that. So let's talk about when. So as far as rollout, where are y'all in the timeline? What are your, milestones that you're looking for going from here till everything is launched?
Right. So like I said, the back end is proven. We've got all of the business documentation. We have been reaching out to VCs the last couple of weeks, and we already have 2 meetings set up starting next week. So it looks like, and if we continue with the eye opener, the events that we've had, I think it will be fairly soon that we are able to release this. Now, what we're looking at, like I said, the back end is proven, it's done. Once we get funded, it will then become a race on that. And so we're looking at 6 to 12 months to having MVP on this for at least, and I want to say personal, but it may be personal, professional, depending. 6 to 12 months, because like I said, the back end's done. So we just need to, make something good. So Jeff is, he is the development side as well. Him and Artem have been working very close together to determine what this is going to cost and how much this is going to cost down to the dime. And so what I did is I put together my perfect candidate that we would use on all sides. And right now it's mainly UI stuff that we'll be working on, as well as getting the hooks into all of the different storage providers, because they all have their own little, we would need to cover them all, and as well as local storage as well. So as well as mobile, and as well as your computer and things like that. So that because the back end is done, we're 6 to 12 months. Now, whether we are 6 to 12 months to launch, for me, I'm not going to launch anything that's not good. So we're going to be going through beta testing with all of these guys. We have conferences that we're going to be attending as well, getting our name out there. I really want to be part of DEF CON and Black Hat next year.
I'll be DEF CON this year, handing out.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
So we'll probably just be attending on the down low, but next year I just want to hit us, try and get it, so we want to be at that point next year. But yeah, so we're definitely going to be working very hard here next, getting our name out. And you are our first podcast, by the way. Yeah. So yeah, we're
like being first, so
Yeah, no. We've got to invite to another one, but as well. But I wanted to kind of go through with you first.
Okay, so wrapping it up, what is one sentence, and I'll ask each of you to give it. Don't, no pressure, you're getting on the spot. What is one sentence you want everyone, especially potential investors, to remember about your company?
It's very difficult to say what this thing does, and we're just now getting them on, because I was like, just get us on the phone, get on the phone with us, and we'll show you what this does. And once you see it and once you hear, then you're going to be good. And like I said, I have no doubt that if things continue the way they are, that we're going to make some of the people we're talking to very happy.
Nice. Well, and I mean, on the, the tech VAR side, I'm excited for when this rolls out and we can bring on a new partner. Because I'll be looking for stuff that is innovative and the next best thing, and something that a lot of our customers haven't heard of yet. So.
Right. Yeah. That's my one sentence.
That's your one sentence. All right. Does anyone else have 37 sentences that count as one?
Yeah.
I have a couple. I was telling Tom about this earlier. One of the founders for a big CSPM tool, I was looking at his interview, and he said that I called up my friend and I told him, hey, what do you think about creating the next biggest cybersecurity company? And that really hit me especially when I was looking at I feel like we can beat them to this, right? We can
Okay.
cybersecurity, but we're like data control. We can beat them in many of these aspects. And that's what I think of ourselves as right out there. So I think, from an investor point of view and things like that, I think this could be the next big thing, especially from a cyber's perspective. Cybersecurity, data control, passwords, everything, you name it, it's there. And I will also say that during this podcast, we've only talked about 5% of what this is. There's like, as Tom mentioned, that I have my own UI. I cannot discuss it, right? Like what I have plans for it, like what I have envisioned for it. So I think so far, we've only talked 5% of what the capabilities are, but without going too much deep into it, we're answering so many use cases, and the use cases can target any single individual who really cares about their data, who wants to make sure that they are secured and they are in control of what they have out there.
Okay.
Not 37 sentences, but less than.
It was about 11. Okay. Artem, what about you?
Yeah, I have a couple sentences, I think.
All right, I'm counting.
Also not one, but yeah, I hope it's not 37 either. I'll answer it from kind of a finance perspective. What I would kind of want to ingrain in the investor's mind, as we're walking away, it's accessible security with an accountable team and at a cost that's manageable and that will, like as Tom loves to say, print money for the investor.
Okay,
So
that needs to be on your slide deck.
Yeah, so I don't always like to say that. I like to stay humble, but I had to use this. This is the most perfect phrase because not a lot of investors are able to see, I think, across the IT space, a technology that you're able to develop for a reasonable cost, which in my opinion we're bringing, and to reach that level of profitability because of BYOS, because of all these aspects that usually companies burn a lot of their money on. And that's kind of a really big selling point for us. It's something that you could sell, but we're not asking you for $1 billion for, to develop. So, and I think a lot of companies are missing that right now in the space and are raising crazy amount of money is an understatement, and they don't reach a profitability or they even die out within the first 5 years. So we're kind of bringing something viable that will, in my opinion, and based on everything that I've learned over the time of being here, I think we'll be able to reach.
Okay, I like that. And someone who sells a lot of storage and has to work with some pretty skinny margins, I'm here for it.
No,
Don't forget us little people.
I'm not kidding you. I was talking to my doctor about this, and so I said to her, I go, I'm not sure. So attorneys, CPAs, those kind of things are very good in this market, but doctors are a little bit different because they use a lot of proprietary systems, and now a lot of them have an integrated system. So I'd have to go to the integrator instead of directly to the doctors. But she was telling me, I'm not kidding you, she was bouncing up and down in her seat because she was telling me she's part of a megachurch. And they were just having conversations about how to get their caregivers data and passwords of family members. It's a huge deal with them is the fact that they have no way, if something happens, or, God forbid something happens to their parent or something, they have no way to do that. Now they can go to an estate planner or something like that, but that gives you a partial piece of it. It doesn't really give you the data. It just sends you, doesn't give you anywhere near, what Final Act would do or Auto Act would do. And and that's where when we had to put the competitor thing together, I kind of made a joke. I was like, we don't have any competitors. We don't even say competitor at the company. I don't like it. We have categories. So there's different categories. You mentioned one at CrowdStrike is one of the categories that we have. Password One is a category. There's different categories, but there really is no competitor to what we're putting together. Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Is there any final thoughts that anybody wants to add? I'll get to, putting this all together and making it a cohesive presentation.
Are we going to be avatars?
Do you want to be 8-bit characters? Because I could do that. I was already picturing these guys as unicorns, so.
Yeah. Yeah, please don't make them unicorns, because I'm not sure. I haven't asked them if they're happy with that.
Okay.
All right.
I think that is all my questions I have.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much for doing this. This is so awesome.
Of course. It was good to see you, and it was nice to meet you, gentlemen. I hope to see much more of you.